Hello, and welcome back to plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. My name is Fred.
My name is Maddie.
And on this show, we say we do three things. Number one, we talk about your plants. Number two, we will do product reviews, talk about specific things you're looking at. Number three, we answer your questions. But we should add a fourth because I find that I'm always drinking coffee whenever we start this recording.
And every time we start, I said this to Fred before, but I love this intro because it's so monotone, but it's the same intro every single time. So if you've been listening to our episodes, I guarantee you know exactly what he's going to say. Like,
That's
I'm
true.
saying the words in my head. Hello, welcome back to plantcare.club. Like, everybody knows the intro by now.
I think it should be repetitious. It's nothing new. Like, it shouldn't surprise you. And honestly, like, when I start a podcast or a show, if I've been there so many times, I skip the first minute because you know that's what people are going to be doing. They're going to start out, they're going to say, their normal ramble, and then, okay, we actually begin. So I don't know. I think that's fine.
I think it's great. And then we'll add on a little, and I've got my espresso here. Let's go.
Yes, I have my espresso here. And we do I end up drinking coffee most of the time when we're recording this, because sometimes it is the first time sitting down during the day.
Yeah.
And as soon as I sit down, I'm just like, I would like to have a quick coffee while I sit down. So I'll sip on this as we're going. But for you, it is New Year's. This should be the first episode that you see in the new year. So Happy New Year.
Happy 2025, everybody. It's exciting.
It is here. Oh, wait. Who are we? We forgot to say that.
Yes. Okay. I am Maddie. I am the marketing brains behind plantcare.club, but also I'm here to help bring someone who's in the greenhouse with these flowers all the time, who has kind of more of an expert level of this understanding of the plants. He's going to say he's not an expert, but he knows a lot more about the technical stuff to plants.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of bring it back to how does this apply to me? Because that's how I'm learning at the same time. So basically I'm answering the questions that I'm asking and answering the questions that you guys are probably thinking.
So we grew up on a greenhouse farm.
Yeah.
I am with the greenhouse now after I finished school. We sell plants across Canada and the US. We grow everything from tropicals, house plants, all of those sort of things, to bedding plants like geraniums, million bell, hanging baskets, poinsettias, all of that. You actually are probably sick of poinsettias. You probably just threw yours out. Hopefully, one of my pet peeves, and I've said this before, for some people, they want to hold on to the poinsettia over the year, and it always comes back to, and I keep saying, you can keep your poinsettia alive. And it is mildly impressive if you can keep your poinsettia alive through the year. Fine. The hard part is keeping it looking nice.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah.
It will be ugly as butt by the time March rolls around, most likely. If you have a poinsettia that's still looking really nice, but you know what? No, because once it leaves that blooming phase, the center of the flower is going, all the centers are going to fall out. The cyathea is gone. And then you just got a big hole in the middle of the colored leaves. And then it's going to put on new leaves and grow again. But that's such a hard spot to be in. I say, give it up, move on, new season. You're coming up to Valentine's Day. Just focus on that. Or, wow, what a lead in. Or you listen to the show and you take some tips from our show. So the point of today's show, doing a new year, new plant you is a corny thing, I think. I really could, it was water your plants more often. It's that doesn't apply to everyone. It doesn't really help you. So what we wanted to do was talk about 10 varieties, 5 each, that you should consider using in 2025.
Yeah.
Or if you're I'm going to buy something new. I threw my poinsettia. I want to put something in that spot. What do I put in there?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you 10 ideas.
10 ideas, essentially 1 per month, giving you 2 month leeway of maybe something happens, maybe you're on vacation.
Are we doing 12 ideas?
No, we're doing 10, but I'm saying giving you 2 months of okay, maybe you're on vacation, you can't get a new plant that month.
Oh, I understand. Okay, so we're going to stick with 10. So Maddie has her 10. I do not know what she's picked. She does not know what I've picked because I don't know what I've picked either.
Well, I know the first one you picked now, but
I'm not picking this one. I put garden gnomes on the screen because I knew that neither of us were going to pick it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't pick a garden gnome, so.
Because, initially I was I'm going to put a houseplant, but then when I did, I thought, she might pick that one. So right. We're going to we're gonna start rolling with this. Okay,
Okay.
are you ready?
Yeah, can
Let's
I
do
go
it.
first?
You go first.
Okay, first up, we've got Monstera. So I'm going to get Fred to look up Monstera. So you're going to hear all of my ideas or my favorite kinds of plants. There's a common theme with them. One, they're usually a little easier to take care of. But the other thing that's huge for me is that when the flower, so there's no flowers on this is, oh, there you go. Okay, we're good. But like on other plants, which you're going to be diving into later, is like if a flower dies or when this plant maybe is dying, it doesn't look that ugly. Yeah, the leaves might go slightly brown, but what I'm thinking of is like, you know, when a geranium starts to die and you have to like pick the plant off or the flower off. I think it looks so ugly, to be completely honest. I feel like these ones are kind of self-taken care of. So, Monsteras, indoor plants, great indoor plants. And if you're in like Canada, where you kind of have to bring them in the wintertime, they'll still be fine inside, which is great. So you can keep them year round. And in the summertime, you can take them outside. For example, our mom had a Monstera plant, massive. It grew massive in the summer. There was 2 on either side of the steps to walk into the front door. You couldn't enter the front door because the leaves were so massive. But that's just from the Canadian summer sun, like coming down on it. But so love that. Love that you can keep them inside for pretty much anybody can do that. Or if you're in Florida or something, you can keep them outside too. A well-draining soil is really important. And any other like tips or tricks when it comes to the Monstera?
When it comes to Monstera, yeah, you want to keep it watered. I don't tips and tricks. Like I think that you just have to roll into it and see how it's going. You have to watch, like, okay, are your leaves burning? Then, like, they can be a little bit more susceptible to not getting fertilizer.
Okay.
So if you can fertilize them, they'll really take off. But if you are done, I wanna riff on the Monstera a little bit more.
You're gonna
because there's some different what you see here. Like if you're seeing right beside my head in annuals. Let's say you're talking about geraniums. And I think we've gone over this before, but if not, like stay tuned till the spring. I know we talked about it when we go into the spring. You might look at a geranium and say, oh, this is a 4-inch geranium pot, and this is going to be great in my flower bed. But what you need to know is that plant a landscape variety, or is it a potted variety? So there are different variations to the genetics. So when you buy the plant at the store, it could be the exact same size between a landscape and a potted variety, or like a smaller, let's say a mini geranium, something like that.
Yep.
But when you put it into your garden bed, how big is it actually going to get? That's what's going to change your success. So if you look at the Monstera that's beside me, this is more of the classic Monstera you might see in a lot of people's homes, or even if they plant them outside, like in South Florida, you can plant these outside.
Yeah.
And they'll climb up trees, they'll climb up this and that. Yeah. And they're a landscape variety, like the equivalent of that, where they're aggressive, they're fast growing. If you give them the nutrients, they'll keep on going.
Okay.
But if you want one that's smaller, like try a mini Monstera. I will Google that right now.
Okay.
So if you want something that's smaller, like check out these ones. So as I was scrolling down, I saw that there were some other varieties, and you were like, and you kind of paused.
It confused me. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is exactly why. So like, you see how the leaves are a different size and a different shape?
And it, so if you're listening to, these ones seem to trail a lot more. So if you, right? Like you see that? You can see the photos that are on the far right of the screen. It's like more of a trailing Monstera than it is one that grows up and out, right?
Yes. Small verbiage change. Okay. And only because like in the plant world, it just depends on what people say. A trailer is a plant that usually grows down.
Okay.
A climber will go up.
Oh.
And these mini Monsteras and Monstera in general are more climbers.
Oh,
so like
okay.
if you give them a pole or a tree, like in the wild in Costa Rica, they'll be climbing up trees.
Okay.
But if not, like if you, here's a pole right there. You see that? So it's like it's kind of like a moss. It looks like a cat scratching pole that some people will give to the plant and put the plants back up against that pole, and then it will slowly climb up the side of that and eventually shoot out air roots. Sometimes the air roots will like go around it, to hold itself onto that.
This is pretty ideal for like putting it on a deck or something as well. Like if you have railings, it can trail up around a railing, kind of like a Mandevilla would.
Mm-hmm. It would take a lot longer for that to happen.
Okay.
And now here's kind of an expert mode Monstera. These are more expensive usually, but they're pretty cool. The Thai Constellation Monstera. Now, the Thai constellation Monstera, it was the original variegated Monstera, or the one that really came to market first.
Okay.
Since then, there's a lot more genetic varieties. So if you've heard, oh, I don't have a Thai constellation Monstera, I have a blank, and it's got some other name. Essentially, it's similar genetics. It's a
Okay.
variegated Monstera at the end of the day.
Okay.
But yeah,
this is
so
really cool too.
so variegation in the actual leaves. It's not just green; it is white and green.
I have a question.
Yep.
What if, like, could you ever have a Monstera where the leaves don't split? And is that something to be concerned about? Because some of these ones aren't as split as others.
That's just usually, in my experience, that's maturity.
Oh, okay.
So as the plant is maturing and it's getting larger and older, those leaves will start to split.
And that's where you get like the cheese plant look.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Cool.
the cheese plant, exactly. We're 10 minutes in and we got one done.
Okay,
We
Fred's
have
up next.
One done. I'm gonna go Ageratum because I'm really excited about this year. Okay, so this looks boring. It looks
It does.
like nothing right
Yeah.
now. Now
It looks like a weed right now, actually.
So it's just got some little blue flowers. If you're listening, it is a green plant with little blue flowers.
Okay, hold
so
up. Is this going to be one of those, like, is it blue or is it gold things? Because this is purple to me. Maybe some of you think this is blue. This is interesting.
Well, I'm saying blue. I say blue because in the actual genetics from the breeder, they say blue. So
interesting.
you would be wrong.
I would be.
That would mean you're wrong.
I'm just saying. It looks purple.
There are some cool. I haven't seen this this yellow variety or no, the pink variety yet.
It's pretty cool.
We'll see. Anyway, Ageratum. Why am I excited about it? Because if it's a boring looking little blue flower plant, why am I excited? It attracts so many butterflies. That's why.
It's really cool. And monarch butterflies, like specifically monarch butterflies.
Unbelievable. So if I was you, I would suggest, okay, grab 3 6-inch if you can find them somewhere in the spring. Plant them either in your garden bed or into like a 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch pot, something like that. 1, 2, 3 in a pot. Give that thing fertilizer, really push it, make it really big. And like by July, August, it will be covered in monarch butterflies. We had them all over our place.
Yeah.
This past year.
Really cool too,
Very
because
cool.
like there was like people talking about monarch butterflies going more extinct. And then which I hadn't seen them for a while, and then all of a sudden we had this plant and our backyard was covered in monarch butterflies. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So that's Ageratum. As far as growing it, it grows like a lot of many annuals. You said like relatively well draining soil. If you've listened to other shows or you listen coming up in the spring, I know in the spring I like do this a lot, and I say on one side we have clay and on the other side we have sand.
Yeah.
And I try to give like an explanation of where we're at. Basically, you're shooting right down the middle. Like you can go a little bit heavier soil if you really want to, but you don't need to. And fertilizer, you're going to probably give it a once or twice feeding. You can treat it like most of your annuals.
Once or twice feeding, like in what time period?
In a week. If you're really eager, like give it twice a week or just about every watering. But I don't think you really need to.
No.
Like you can just feed it the same way you do a geranium, million bell, whatever else you've got out there.
Yeah, and it can be in the sunlight, right?
Yeah. They are grown for the sun.
Perfect. Okay.
You're up.
I'm up. Fred actually took my number 2, so I have to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's totally fine though. Okay, my number. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I have my list here. Is a bonsai tree. These are really cool, and they're really neat indoor trees. Sorry, the dog is. Every episode, he just needs to make his presence known.
Welcome, Oliver.
Yeah. Okay, bonsai tree. So if you're listening, these bonsai trees kind of look like how do you describe it? Like I would say a tree in Asia, but they're mini.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looks like one of those. So really, really neat. I think that they would be a really cool, like if you work at an office job, it'd be a cool office plant. It'd be a cool plant for inside your house. So usually they need kind of some bright sunlight. So if they can be near a window, that would be ideal. And I mean, what else is there to say about this? Well-draining soil is usually what comes with these as well. But they're a really neat plant, and I just think they're really different. And they're very unique to have in your home. If you had one of these, someone would definitely point it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally when you pick them up, bonsai trees, they're not always grown in in growers' pots. Sometimes I have seen them actually grown in the ceramic pot that
Really?
they're sold in. Yeah, because they don't take as much water. They're really more like a succulent.
Oh, that's great too. So it doesn't need much water.
Most of the time when you're buying them, like if you're going to buy it in a 4-inch up to 6-inch, it will be in a ceramic pot when you get it. So that's a great bonus. You're probably not going to find this in larger sizes. It's not as common. There are different varieties like you see over far to my right, or if you're listening, it looks like almost ginseng roots, like a really thick, heavy root that's coming down versus the traditional look of a bonsai tree where it's one main stem that comes out with more branches that are coming off. That's
Yeah.
just different varieties. And for fertilizer, you can treat it more like a succulent, really.
Which is perfect. I feel
yeah.
like these are these are definitely more expensive, at least where we are, like in
Mhm.
Canada. Could be because they come in a ceramic pot too, but
And I think most of it is like growing time. It takes a
Mhm.
little bit longer to grow. It's harder to actually get it to root. Getting that entire process done.
yeah,
So that situation behind it makes it a little bit more expensive, but
really neat tree.
Mhm.
Yeah,
very cool trees.
cool gifting tree.
Okay, I'm up next. I'm gonna go with lantana.
I like lantana too.
So lantana outdoor in the spring is generally when you would get it, or in the summer, spring, summer. Best part about a lantana is if you're putting it on the spectrum, right down the middle of, you can actually put in a little bit more heavy soil because you're going to use it through the summer. The key is this is a drought tolerant plant. You can go away for a few days, come back, it'll still be alive. That's awesome.
Sweet.
That's the best.
Yeah.
So it's got these purple, yellow, pink flowers, depending on the variety that you're looking for. This is just like many of the annuals that I was talking about earlier. If you are looking for a lantana and you want to put it in different spaces, make sure you get the right one. You don't want a really small variety in a big pot or in a landscape area, and vice versa. Big plant into a small spot.
Yeah.
They can attract butterflies. I have seen them attracting more insects and that sort of a thing, or
Yeah.
bees. I've seen that too.
Okay.
So, and
Good to know.
the key is they got some nice flowers, like relatively pretty flowers that will cover the whole plant, and drought tolerant. So
And
if you're going away,
lots of different color options.
yes.
Tons of different, like blues, pinks, purples, oranges. Although blue and purple might be the same thing for Fred, but
And the breeder. So it's up to who are you fighting
Sorry,
against?
I know, literally experts. Okay, next one I did. You notice that you're choosing outdoor plants. I'm choosing indoor plants here. This is more of an expert mode one, I would say, but I'm gonna go with the orchid.
Okay.
I think an orchid would be a really cool one to try for 2025. Difficult to take care of, depending on who you ask. I mean, it's indirect sunlight and it doesn't take a ton of water, but it's very, very finicky with its water and its sunlight. I feel like you have to really keep your eyes on it. You couldn't just leave this plant for a week or two and it wouldn't be thriving when you come back for sure. Usually when you water one of these, you water them with like an ice cube or two. Depending on the size of the orchid that you get, you would use an ice cube and it would just slowly melt into the soil to
I'm sorry. Like this picture, if you're listening, there is a like not safe for work picture. That is odd looking. My gosh.
Stop.
I'm going to scroll past that.
Everyone listening is going to come and watch that 50 minutes.
I Googled orchid. Like, it's a normal thing. It's just, I don't know what that.
Maybe it's a type of orchid. I have no idea.
It must be. Like, that must still be a flower. It's just like, guys, you need to flag this.
What else about orchids? I love the different color options, and they're really beautiful flowers. And usually with an orchid, too, they grow up. So are they climbers? Would you call them a climber? Because I know you put a stick beside them and you actually pin it to the stick, right? So
yeah.
You'd consider it a climber.
But that's the bloom.
Yeah,
the bloom is climbing, quote unquote. So I don't know if I would say that an orchid is really a climber. Maybe later on. Most of the time when you see an orchid in a store, it's going to be a 5-inch orchid.
Yeah.
That's like the most common size variety sold. Really grown in a 4-inch pot, put into a 5-inch ceramic. That's what you have. Like most of the time when I see orchids, they are fully green plants that bloomed 6 months ago, and someone still has on their desk.
And they gifted it to someone when it bloomed, and the blooms went away like 3
Well, but
weeks later.
that's the point. Like, you gift it to someone when it's blooming. Now you can get it to bloom again. It's just very hard.
It is difficult.
It's very hard.
But that's why I put this in as an expert mode, like 2025 plant. Like, see if you can get it to bloom again. It is a really pretty and gorgeous plant. So the other thing we have to remember, Fred, is some people don't just want to take the plant and throw it out. Some people they have a connection with that plant. They love their plant.
That is great. It just goes right back to what I said about poinsettias. You can keep that plant alive, and awesome job doing that. How pretty is it?
Yeah.
That's the real question. If you're hearing thuds in the back, that's our dog throwing the ball.
For himself. Okay, next plant.
Next plant.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen Aspidistra?
I've never even heard of this one before.
Aspidistras are very cool. So I would argue that this is one of the most underrated houseplants that are out there. That's my argument here. Aspidistra are plants that you plant one small plug, or 1, 2, 3 plugs, depending on how big the size pot is. And most of the shoots come right out of the soil. So basically you plant a plug into the soil, that starts to grow, and then the roots either go down or across the soil level. And when they reach the surface of the soil, they shoot up again.
Okay.
They shoot up more growth, basically. More. It's not more plants, but it's more growth that's coming right out of the soil. More leaves. Looks like leaves, really.
Okay.
The coolest part about Aspidistra is that it's so hard to rip. Like, these are really, really sturdy, strong plants.
Cool.
So they have like this green, almost like a mass cane look to them. Look to the leaves, like a long, wavy leaf. But they're so strong. Like, if you take an Aspidistra and you hold the leaf on its side and you try to rip it, it's nearly impossible to rip.
Which actually would be really great for like a pet owner. If you're scared of your pet probably eating your plant, this would be ideal.
Absolutely.
Like, they won't be I'm not going to say no dog's going to be able to bite into it, because I know some dogs that are pretty aggressive, but this would be an ideal plant for someone who's afraid for their cats or their dogs. Or any pet, sorry.
And they're not that toxic. Like, every plant is toxic to some amount, to some degree. So I'm not going to say that your cat's going to be totally fine if it eats the whole thing. But at the same time, I wouldn't be as worried about.
It's going to be harder to bite into. It's great.
Exactly. So if you're looking for an Aspidistra, now if you are, you can kind of see one here. There are variegated ones. So if you're saying, the green leaf is sort of boring, do you have anything else? They're variegated. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what the variety name is. But there's a variegated Aspidistra that you can look for.
How often do you have to water these?
So they're more like a yucca cane.
Cool.
That kind of thing, where they're a bit more bulletproof. Like, I would say once a week, twice a week, something like that. Regular houseplant.
Nice.
Look at that. We switched.
We swapped.
While Maddie is doing this, I'm going to let the dog downstairs, because if you're listening and you have a keen ear, you probably hear him.
Yeah, the whining is not us. That's all right. I'm gonna look up the next one. I'm a big fan of the English ivy. One of the big reasons I love the big English. Oh my goodness, I can't speak today. The reason I love the English ivy is because I think it's really cool for me to see them on like a shelf, and when they're like trailing. I've got it down now. This is a trailing one. But I love when I see them trailing. I've actually been to a friend's house where she has an English ivy, and it is wrapped around the entire room. She just puts little hooks around and hooks the English ivy all the way around. It's really interesting. It's really cool. And actually, she's scared because she can't stop it from growing. I mean, she can trim it, but she doesn't want to trim it. But the point is, these are pretty bulletproof plants too. Like, you don't have to water them super often. I think that they look really cool, and I love the way that they trail. Like, they just keep growing. So if you're looking for a plant that you can grow, English ivy is definitely a cool option for that. They're not going to be a big bushy plant, though. Remember that. They're going to be more of a long plant. Yeah. Sorry.
It's going to make you feel successful. That's for sure.
That's it. That's exactly it. If you want to win for 2025, get an English ivy.
Yeah, it's like you're going to see it continue to grow. Oh, man. So you've said English ivy. I know there's Swedish ivy. I don't know if there's like one ivy for every country in Europe.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I've never actually thought about that. Like, is there a German ivy?
There could be.
I'm going to Google it while we're here. German ivy?
There you go.
Wow. Okay, so there's an ivy for every country in Europe.
Yeah.
But anyway, English ivy, they are a ton of fun to watch them continue to grow. They really they will be in that balance between a spring plant and a house plant.
Yeah.
And they're really one that you can have outside during the summer and then bring inside.
Yeah.
I've seen them in 10-inch pots, and they're enormous plants.
Oh, really? Okay.
Enormous. They can be huge. Huge.
Okay, that's true. And you know what? Sometimes you'll get an English ivy in a patio pot that you might buy in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to throw that plant out, don't throw your English ivy out, replant it, repot it. You can bring it inside and it'll do the same thing that we're talking about. You don't have to get a brand new one.
Or if you want to be really nice to your friends, you could try to root them.
Yeah.
Propagating your English ivy is very reasonable. You can do that.
Yeah. There's another 2025 goal. I love that one. Okay.
Yeah. If you want more information on propagating, let us know. We can get back to you on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'm going to pick.
You better not pick my next one.
You pick Areca palm?
Pick Areca palm.
I'm going to pick an Areca palm, and only because they are very similar to a Majesty palm.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. However, they differ in a few cool little ways. So with a Majesty palm, you have that classic stem that's coming out of the base. If you're listening, I will try to describe it to you, but I'm just going to Google it. So you see this woody styled base of the Majesty palm?
Yeah.
That's the classic look for it. And then so it goes from that wood all the way up to the full palm at the top. Nice, big, green, depending on what size you're getting, anywhere from usually from a 10-inch all the way up to a 17, 21-inch. So it'll be 8-9 feet high, depending on what size you're really looking for there.
Yeah.
So the reason that I'm saying Areca palm, though, is because it can take the sunlight, just like a Majesty palm can.
Yep.
It's just as bushy, if not bushier.
Okay.
But the advantage is when you actually bring that plant in at the end of the year, sometimes Areca palms survive a little bit better.
Oh, okay. So let's go
Keep
back.
it over the winter.
Let's go back so we can just show the Areca palm again. So you were talking about the woodiness of the bottom of the Majesty palm. By that you meant kind of looks like thin sticks, kind of, or the base kind of looks, and then these ones are more green. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So if you look at the base here.
Okay, it's definitely more green then.
It's a little bit more green, and it looks more similar to the Aspidistra that I just brought up. You see how there were different shoots that were coming out all over the place?
Yeah.
With a Majesty palm, especially with a Majesty palm single, they refer to it as a single where there's only one place in the pot where the plant is growing out of.
Okay.
Versus with an Areca, you're not going to usually get that. You're going to get a bunch of different little nodes that are all contributing to the size of the plant.
That all make it bushier and stuff. Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
It's a really cool plant. All right.
Is that enough on Areca palms? Did I give enough of a case here?
Yeah. How often do you have to water? I feel like that's a huge one because if someone's like, okay, I'm not a green thumb, I don't want to have to take care of this too much.
You treat it very similarly to many of your other outdoor plants. During the summer, if you have well draining soil on your palms, your ferns, your annuals, perennials, a lot of those things, you can treat most of them the exact same way.
Okay.
So in Florida or in California, where a lot of these are grown, they're watered every day. And as long as the soil is well draining and you don't have pools somewhere and they're getting the right amount of sunlight, they are fertilized or watered every single day. That soil stays moist and full of nutrients because that's the way to keep that plant growing quickly.
Interesting. So, okay, if you're going to take those plants outside, you can treat it kind of like that if it's in direct sunlight.
Yeah, and
in the heat.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's dependent on the heat, but then if you're keeping it inside and it's getting direct sunlight, I would just say check the soil too. It's so difficult to say an exact watering schedule because it depends on where it is and if it's inside, outside. Is your house really hot? Is it by a window? All those things, right? It's tricky.
Kind of put in your own brain, I guess, when you're asking, okay, how often do I water this? Think about where it's coming from. So for a Majesty palm, it's coming from let's say South Florida, 30, 30 degrees at night and like 34 during the day.
Yeah.
Celsius. So it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually in shade, but it's still getting some pretty strong sunlight down there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being watered every day. Now, let's say you are in North Dakota, you're in the summer, so okay, you're still getting a decent amount of sunlight during the day, but your lows of 20 at night and then highs of like 25 during the day.
Yeah.
Fine. You're maybe like halfway to South Florida,
Yeah.
or like a third. So you water it once every other day or once every 3 days or something like that. Like maybe that's a decent mental model that you can use.
Yeah,
roughly.
Maybe? Exactly. You just have to take a look at the surroundings and like where it's living and
Yeah. And then think about, like, the crazy thing is to think about, oh, then I'm going to bring my plant inside and now it's -16 during the night and like -8, which is our coming Friday of this week.
Not inside the house.
But outside. Inside the house, it's going to be like, what, 17, like 16, up to like 22, depending on where you live or how warm you keep your house.
Yeah.
You're only getting, instead of getting 12 hours of sun, you're getting like 5 in this depressing time of year.
Yeah. I get more than 5 hours, but it does feel
How many hours of sun do we get?
I think the sunrise is right now for us at 8 a.m. and it goes down at like close to 5.
At 8 a.m. and close to 5.
So it's like an 8 to 5. It's like your shift at work is basically how much sunlight we get.
The sun is up while you're at work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
The winter's a little depressing here. We like the snow, but
but we don't get any.
No,
we don't get any anymore. There's no more winter. Like,
we're in southern Ontario. We're digressing here, but we're southern Ontario. That's why. So my next plant.
We've both done 3.
This is my last one.
What did we pick?
I chose.
No. I did. Okay, that is my 4th one. So we got one more to go.
Yeah, this is my last one.
Now, I stole yours. Do you have one here?
I have another one.
Do you feel confident with it?
I actually had this one originally, and I swapped it.
So you had 6.
Well, yeah, it was a backup.
You had a backup.
I knew he was going to take one from me. Okay,
you were concerned.
My next one's a Mandevilla.
Oh.
And some of you might be listening and been like, yeah, I've been there, done that. Like, whatever, we've already grown a Mandevilla. But the reason I love the Mandevilla is that they're gorgeous, they're easy to take care of, and I think that they're timeless. I think that no matter if you grow it every single year, it's just as beautiful, in my opinion. And there's 2 types. There's one that's more of a climber. I'm getting so good at this. And one that's more of a bush type Mandevilla. So you don't have to get one that's going to climb or wrap its way around like railings. So for example, for us, we'll have both of them in the spring. But at the cottage, we'll actually start to wrap that vine. I call it a vine, but we'll wrap the flower around the railing of our deck. And it loves that. It wants to find something to grab onto. And it will continue to wrap and crawl its way down. It looks really, really awesome. But also, in the direct sun, it has direct sunlight up there, but it doesn't need a ton of water. Sometimes we won't water because we won't be up for a little while. And as long as we give it some water, it's pretty resilient and it'll pop right back. So some of the reasons I love it, but I just think that every year, if you throw your Mandevilla out and you decide to grow one again in the spring, it will look just as nice. Like, it always comes back. It's very resilient. It's a very nice plant.
I have a funny Mandevilla story. So I'm not going to mention the retailer, but there's like a story that sort of goes around in like southern Ontario, even like northern US. I've heard it a few times from different people that there was the main purchaser from a large retail chain in Canada, and they purchased a lot of the plants for their garden center for the spring and during the year. They managed that whole program. And they went to their cottage, and before they left, they went to one of their own garden centers and they picked up a whole bunch of different plants, and they brought them all to their cottage to test them out. Hangs them all up, waters them all, or sets them on the ground, does whatever. Goes back to work, stays at work for 2 weeks, comes back to the cottage. Everything is dead except for the Mandevilla.
There you go.
So that's the story. And then after that, he said, oh my gosh, I want to really push this product. And then we got more and more and more and more Mandevillas that come to the market. A classic one that you're going to hear about is Rio, the Rio Diplodemia. So you were describing a Mandevilla and a Diplodemia.
Yeah, the bush
Yeah.
is the Dipladenia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So Rio Mandevilla is Rio Diplademia. It's just another variety. The name Rio is a specific marketing term that is
Mhm.
used to describe that company's genetics.
Yep.
Great. That company has great genetics. The Rio varieties are great too. However, a lot of the other varieties you're going to see on the market, the genetics are so similar. They're just off by 1-2 little genes here and there. So it's not a big change. If you're buying something that's not a Rio Diplademia, it's probably not a big difference.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So as we were scrolling down here, I'm wondering if this is what everyone else sees when they Google Mandevilla, or if this is just tailored for my computer, because what I'm searching, but this is a new variety from Sun
cool.
Parcel this year. It's a purple Diplademia. So it's
I've
a
never
dip.
seen
It's a
purple
dip
one.
bush.
Okay.
So that one's pretty cool. It's not going to be out there very much. They only have so much stock as far as the liners go and being able to get the cuttings. If you're questioning, you're like, if it's a good variety, why don't you just have a lot more? Watch our first episode that we ever had. Because that one is on where the plants come from.
Yep.
And it kind of explains, like, this is why Thai Constellation Monstera were in such high demand and no one could get them.
Yeah.
It's because they can't produce that many.
They can't produce enough.
Also, this yellow. This is a new one this year as well. Yeah,
the yellow's new. And usually you're going to see white, pink, or red Mandevillas.
Yeah.
One other note, I kind of mentioned this at the very beginning because I knew I was going to come around to this. The one thing I love about Mandevilla too is that if the flower dies, rather than it being like a gross brown flower that you need to go pick, usually those petals, there's only like 6, 5, will fall off on their own and they'll just grow new beautiful flowers. It is the most low maintenance plant ever.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go and pick the dead flowers, because I know I've been picking on geraniums today, but geraniums are an example of a spring flower that I always see. If it's a dead plant or flower, you have to go pick it off because it looks ugly if you leave the brown plant on. But Mandevilla, you don't have to do that. It's a great kind of self-taking care of plant.
I think you alluded to an episode we have for the spring on low maintenance plants. I remember we're planning on doing something like that because we have a whole series on the spring. Hey, if you're looking for something low maintenance, here's what you're looking for. Mandevilla is definitely a part of that. They're so drought tolerant. They're an awesome plant.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the last one. Now, what do you think? Have we done enough houseplants or have we done outdoor plants? What do you think we should do?
I don't know. What do the people want? It just depends. I'm gonna say we need another outdoor plant. We're in the new year. We're gonna be entering the spring soon. We need an outdoor plant. Unless you had an indoor plant in mind, but
outdoor plant. Okay, how popular do you want to go? Do you want to go pretty popular, or do you want to go something like off the beaten trail?
Off the beaten trail, for sure.
Okay, I'll do.
I feel like I'm giving you Mission Impossible here.
Now, I have a funny story about Scaevola. So when I was a kid working in the greenhouse, and like, please keep in mind, we would come home from school during May. Yeah. And this is before, if you go to the store in the spring and you see all of the pots, they all have like the little stickers on them.
Yeah, a little UPC. Yeah.
There was a time. Now, I don't know if we were just too cheap. If you're listening to this, don't be mad that I say too cheap, mom and dad. But but like if it could just be that it was too expensive,
it could have been too expensive
to get our UPC codes put on the actual pots, or if it was just not possible. And like I actually am leaning towards it was potentially not possible.
Or yes, I want to throw in a third option. It kept their kids busy doing exactly what you're about to say.
That's cruel.
No, I'm not. That sounds horrible. That sounds like it's child labor, but that's not exactly what I mean. I mean, like, it was a job for us to do. We can't say we're bored because we've got stuff we have to do.
That's true, but we were kids. Well, we would come home. Young. We would come home from school, and then so like 3:30, and then you go to the greenhouse and you find the UPC codes. And then you got to go to every one of the 10-inch hanging basket pots. You got to put a sticker on it. Tick, 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 a sticker on every single pot. And so sometimes there would be like, a light day. You only have a few carts to do. On a really heavy day, it's like you're out, like you're not doing homework that night. Like there was nothing. And that was from like middle of April all the way through till ideally we were done middle of June.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then the patio pots and this and that. So anyway, I bring this up because my first story reminded me of this one. Back then when we were working in the greenhouse, I remember helping on, let's say, the weekend to clean up some of the patio pots, right? And when you're in the greenhouse, when you're cleaning them up, you pick up the pot, you sit it on top of a bench or a monorail or something like that, and then you lift up all the trailers that are on the side. You look in the base on top of the dirt, and you want to pull out any of the, like, if there's a weed or there's dead leaves.
Dead leaves, yeah.
You're going to clean dead flowers. You're going to do all, like, you want to clean the plant so that it looks really nice when it gets to the store.
Yeah.
And I remember I would see scaevola that hadn't bloomed, and I was ripping it right out because I thought that it was a weed.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember, like, after days of this, my dad says to me, "What are you doing?" He sees me do it once. He says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm pulling out the weeds." He says, "No, that's a scaevola." Oh. And then I really didn't like scaevolas. But now, there are new varieties that I'm actually starting to turn on, and I'm starting to appreciate them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why? Scaevola is going to be like a lot of your other annuals, kind of right down the middle as far as soil goes, fertilizer, water. You're going to treat it like everything else that you put outside. Not really an indoor plant. But there are new varieties that'll either mound or they'll vine really well. I think the reason I didn't like them is because there were only vining varieties at that time.
And they're itchy. When you'd be sleeving them or something, they were itchy. And so, like, there's a fair warning. They sometimes can irritate your skin. They irritated my skin.
I don't remember that. But I'm just thinking of the new varieties that are out now. And I don't think that's a thing.
No, I don't think the new ones are. But I do remember being younger and it would irritate my skin. So maybe that's not a thing anymore.
I remember that as well. But I don't think that that's a really big thing anymore. So with these scaevola, usually red, white, pink, blue/purple, and I don't think I've seen any yellows or anything like that.
No.
Maybe they're out there, but they have these, instead of just vining out, like you would see a 10-inch hanging basket pot before, and then the plant would just come off the side of it and then go straight down. Yeah. And there was nothing really adding height to the pot, but now they really mound higher and then they shoot out the sides just a little bit.
Okay.
And for a grower in the greenhouse, that's what you want. When they're spreading all the way down the side, and you try to put them into a sleeve, it is just a mess. Or you try to, if you're not going to sleeve that and you're going to put it right onto a rack, it is going to lose. It's going to lose part of its growth. It's just going to be shredded when it actually gets there.
And as like someone who's buying that plant for their home, you have to have it hanging up high because you don't. If the top was, I don't want to say it was ugly. It's just there was nothing there. It was just the trail. So you wanted to look at it from the bottom. You did not want to look at it from the top.
The problem with plants that have in the middle that have all the trailing go at the sides. Million Bell are very famous for this. When you water them right in the middle of the plant, it will start to just lose the leaves later on in the year. It'll start to go woody, like it's basically like a piece of wood, like a stick. Anyone that has hibiscus would know what that kind of looks like, that hard sort of, it's a wood look to it right in the very center. It doesn't have flowers and it looks pretty ugly in the very center. But if you've got that kind of mound on top, the top of the foliage and the flowers are going to mask a lot of that. So you're not going to see those kind of imperfections and the ugliness there.
Nice. Okay, so this new variety that we have here kind of grow up more and go out a little bit.
Most of the time, now I'm not guaranteeing that when you go to your local garden center, you're going to find the good varieties that I'm referring to. But the varieties that we grow now and the varieties that I see most of the time in the market are the ones that mound up top. They go over the sides just a little bit. When you get them at your own home, they're going to really trail off the sides.
Yeah.
They're going to be great in that way.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure scaevola are also insect repellents, or like certain types of insect repellents. I do remember hearing about this. Yeah, they do repel some certain kinds of insects, because that's actually why our mom liked having them around the house. Let's look it up. Yeah. Let's fact check Maddie before we...
You said something silly. You said, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And of course I would.
Yeah, what am
I would
saying?
jump on that as my sibling. I would jump on that immediately. I don't see anything here too big, but that's very possible. I don't know.
Because of the way that the flowering was, but hey, I
How
could
the
be wrong.
flower. Anyway, you're gonna have to look that up on your own if you're really curious about it. What does it say?
Maybe that's different. Anyways, you can fact check me
The
and
United States
pop
due
in
to
the
their heat and drought tolerance and pest resistance. Oh wow, so they are pest resistant. So you're okay, and I understand. I thought you were saying pest resistance as it's going to scare away like bees and butterflies that you might actually want.
Oh no.
But you're saying no, it is resistant to pests like aphids or mealybug or thrip or whitefly or something like that.
It's a super resilient plant in that way. Yeah.
Might be scavola, but I know that they do plant some specific annuals around, let's say, outdoor strawberries. They'll do like a row of strawberries or 3 or 4 rows of strawberries, and then they might do like a row of scavola. And
Okay.
scavola is really reminding me, it's sounding familiar. I know it starts with an S, that
Yeah.
variety of plant. So you're right, that plant will actually deter a lot of pests.
Pests, yes. Not the butterflies, not the bees, not the ones that we like, but more of like the nasty bugs that we don't want around. So
that would be a pest.
that would be a pest. Yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
that is great. Look at you.
look at me with my little fun fact here. This is why I need to be prepared for today.
With your knowledge.
I'm learning. Okay, that was our top 10. That was great.
That was our top 10. Look at that, 46 minutes. Is that a record?
I think this is our record episode. So if you've made it this far, kudos.
Yeah, wow. If you're not bored by us yet, that is great. If you have any questions, plantcare.club.
Yep. Check us out on Instagram.
Send it there. Yeah, Maddie's doing a great job on Instagram. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think that's it.
Yeah, you can find more resources on our website as well. And blog episodes. We've got some free guides in there. So lots of tips and tricks and information for you if you need anything.
We've got it all. If you have any questions about this, like if something came up or you said like, hey, you really should have included this, or tell us, what do you want to do this year?
Yeah.
What do you want to do specific?
Yeah, let us know.
Give her.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you again later.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.